One. And welcome everybody to the 49th episode of the #Invest This podcast. Today I got Don Costa on with us out of Fresno, California. Don, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. It's December. It's sunny. It's a good day.
Good.
Why don't you give the listeners a little bit more about your background and kind of what you're focused on now? I know that you are a real estate investor out of California, and you've put together a pretty sizable business up to this point. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, brief summary. I'll be quick about it. I got into real estate investing in 2003. I started knocking on doors for pre-foreclosure. Found out I had a knack for putting deals together. Made a lot of money real quick. Thought everything I touched turned to gold, buying, BMWs and living the life and really just burning through the money as fast as it came in. I think a lot of us go through that, right? We all know what happened in 2008. I was way overextended. I was way over leveraged. I was not in a good capital position, and therefore over the next, I would say 3 years, I proceeded to lose everything. Went into somewhat of a mini depression, felt like I was a complete failure, struggled keeping the lights on, keeping my kids fed, and was really scared to death of the real estate thing. But I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get hired. I couldn't get anybody to give me an opportunity. Back then, nobody could get hired during the recession I had an associate's degree, so I was either undereducated or overqualified. It's kind of what I ran into. And I really had a moment where I had no options left. And I had to take a self-assessment, look in the mirror and asking myself what I was good at. And I was good at putting deals together. So I got back in 2012. I've been running like a business since. Systems, processes, people. And we've grown it to a pretty sizable business. Right now we're in 7 markets. We're getting ready to go into a few more in 2019. And, I like I said, I'm just in a different position as a person, as a father, as a business owner, and just looking forward to the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of all of the people that I talk to on this podcast, people that have seen massive success, people that, have sizable businesses at this point, almost every single one of them has had a very big pitfall, something major that's happened that sent them all the way back to the reset button, right? And then they have to rebuild it again. And it's almost like, the first time around, you're just taking a stab at it. You're figuring out how the whole thing works, and maybe you make a lot of money, and then you lose it all. Mm-hmm. And then you have to reset, right? So when you say that now you're running it like a business, who helped you do that? Was it through mentorship, coaching? Was it an individual that came into your life at the right time that helped you, say, okay, this is how you got to run it the second time around? Or let's talk about that for a minute.
At the time that I kind of put this back together, it was really on my shoulders. I didn't have anybody that I had reached out to. I just was desperate. I was in a situation where I had no choice. Like I said, I had to face my fears, get back into it. The education, the lessons from my previous ventures and management experience and stuff like that is really what I had kind of leaned on. At that point in time, I looked at, well, why did I fail in business the first time? Actually, I failed in business a couple of times. We're not going to get into that. But why did I fail in real estate the first time? Well, it was because I was in a bad cash position. So I knew that my business, coming with no money, I had to quickly build as much reserves as I could and get to a good cash position as a business. I knew that I didn't have the right team or a real team the first time around. And so I needed to make sure that I built, a team of people that were able to think and have a brain and be hardworking and loyal to the organization. I guess through the missteps, looking back on my life, I've failed many times, and my failures have been my biggest education, as an individual. And like you said, a lot of people will fail. A lot of successful people fail. I think we got to learn, right? We got to learn how to be successful. We got to learn how to be decent people. And I went through all that. I went from being an arrogant punk to, now I'm real and grounded. And you won't even, it's raining outside and I'm still in flip-flops today. So, but you learn those things. Hopefully you learn those things and then you apply them properly. And that's what I try to do now, is just apply things properly, along the way.
Would you say that there is what would be the biggest obstacle that you've encountered so far in restarting the business? and building it up to, we'll talk about, what the business looks like in a minute, but in that progression and starting over, what was something massive that you had to overcome that was tough and difficult to do so?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot, I don't we want to
Right.
sound like, I just had the blueprint. It was easy. I mean, the first obstacle was getting over my fear. I thought originally that real estate was what destroyed me. Now looking back on it, I realized it was me who destroyed me. Had I been who I am today and the market crash happened, I probably would have cleaned up and made a ton of money. So it was me and my inexperience and fear really held me back from taking massive action. So that was obstacle number one. Obstacle number two was I didn't have money to buy gas, let alone, market. So it was building, I had to get out and network, OPM, other people's marketing. I was calling, bandit signs, Craigslist post, and I had to get out there and just build a network. And so time, I guess, time was kind of an obstacle because you only have so much in a day and you can only move so fast. Then along the way it was, how am I borrowing money? I started off in JV partnerships where they put up the money, I did the work, and we split the profit down the middle because I didn't have the money to do hard money payments and down payments. And so, half my profits on every deal were just going out the door. And so, getting to a point where I could restructure those agreements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and properly cash flow the business. So, and then people. I mean, people. I think people talk about systems, but systems really are rules and boundaries for the people, and the people become the next struggle.
That's also another common theme that I hear from lots and lots of people, and something that I've struggled with, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with at the very beginning, right? Is letting go of that control and saying, okay, this is the time to delegate. I have to, in order for me to grow, which is kind of where I'm at now as a business. And, we're expanding. I don't have enough time and I have to have people. And therefore I also have to let go of control and take a different approach to the business. Cause now all of a sudden you're not being the technician, you're now being an entrepreneur, right? You're being the one that's out there, trying to create jobs and value and whatever. So how has that been? Let's talk about the business and what your people look like now. You're in 7 markets, so obviously not everybody's in the same state. But what do you have there in California where you're at? That's where you're at, right?
California. Yeah, we actually are in the same state. California is a big state. So,
okay.
But so we, I have a fairly sizable team. I think as of today, we're 16. We just had a couple of new hires, 16 people. And being a bottleneck was difficult for me because I use this analogy all the time, right? As entrepreneurs, let's just say that we're climbing a hill because that's kind of what the battle is when you're starting a business, right? You're climbing a hill and we got this cart behind us and we start filling this cart with, the things we're doing and the people we're hiring, and we got to pull all this up the hill. So we're responsible for it for a certain point, certain period. And then we cross the top of the hill and we start going downhill. Well, as entrepreneurs, we cross that threshold. We feel like, and probably somewhat rightly so, feeling like we got it there, so we're responsible for it. The problem is once you start going downhill, if you don't get out of the way, you're holding everything back. And so, I mean, think about it. If you got out of the way of that cart, how much faster is that cart going to go down that hill without you? So, and a lot of us don't see it that way. We feel like we got to hold it and pace it. And that's the analogy I use. And I went through that. I already had a project manager, but I was still managing my projects. I had a moment in time where I was late to pick up my son from practice and late to meet a contractor to pick a color and late to get back to the office to sign, submit reimbursements to my lender so I can get my checks. So I wasn't out of money. And I just remember shutting my truck door and crossing the street and thinking, this sucks. This really sucks. And I think we all go through that where we're just not letting it go because we feel like we have to control everything. And it was moments like that. It wasn't just that one moment, but it was moments like that accumulated that forced me to kind of let go of things. And the more I put faith in people and realized I make mistakes, it's okay if they make mistakes. I need to do certain things to grow. It's okay if they do certain things to grow. They don't have to do things the way I do it to get to the end result, as long as the end result's what we need. So as I started to learn that and see the fruits of that and to realize how my business was growing and taking off, it just freed me to let go even more. And to the point today where literally I don't see the houses we flip. I couldn't tell you what the cross streets are. We buy, we renovate, we sell, we buy, we wholesale, all these houses. And I couldn't even tell you where they're at. I sit in on a Tuesday meeting to see if I need to help or interject on anything. And that is the extent of what I do other than planning for my business.
Right, right. And so, a lot of people that are listening to that say, oh, well, that sounds like such a great job. There's no stress. You don't do anything anymore. But the reality is that the amount of work and effort that you had to put into building that to get to that point. And it's not like you're overseeing everything, but I know that you're looking at the numbers. You're looking at everything specifically to make sure that it fits what it needs to fit in order to continue to evolve and get better. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Would you say that obviously it's a lot of fun now, right? I mean, you're sitting back, you're able to watch it grow. You're watching this baby child that you built as a business to grow and evolve. Is there anything that going into 2019, another massive change, you're going to make it grow that much faster? Or is it only single family houses that you're in?
Right now, we're only in single family. In 2019, I'm going to be going heavily after apartment communities. That's one of my goals for 2019, since my time is somewhat freed up. I made a big change in 2018. I restructured the whole front end of my organization. I added lead managers, which I hadn't really had before I had my acquisitions, people answering the phones and setting their own appointments. I added lead managers. I added follow-up as a priority to their position. That has been a game changer for my organization. Follow-up is 40% of what we do in our business this year. I think that's where a lot of investors fail. I think that's why they think certain things like direct mail and other marketing sources don't work, because they don't realize that it's not just low-hanging fruit. We're buying stuff that we've gotten the first phone call 6 months, 11 months before, and it's taken us that long in follow-up to get it in contract. And that's been significant for our business. So in 2019, we're looking at better ways to be more efficient in follow-up. We're looking at doing some, cold calling stuff, not to the level some other organizations are, but we're looking to add that component to our organization. We're looking at, getting more efficient on closing over the phone, which is something that my lead managers and I have been working more diligently on, so that our acquisitions team is only tasked with going out on the stuff they have to go out on. And, just really 2019 for me is efficiencies. We're going into 2 new markets. We're looking at a market in Oregon and a market in Nevada. And, we're going to 2 new markets, but beyond that, it's just efficiencies. It's just becoming better at what we do for 2019 and then adding the multifamily.
Now I've heard, some people disagree and say, oh yeah, you got to have your acquisitions guys answering the phone, building rapport, going on the appointment. But I would agree with you that you really need to have, leads manager. What are you paying your leads manager? Do they get a percentage? Is it an hourly rate?
They get hourly. They're hourly plus they get a bonus for each contract that if they're responsible for setting the appointment closes. The appointment turns into a contract and that contract closes, and they'll get $200 a contract that closes. So they do that. And then if they close over the phone, they get, we pay our acquisitions people 10%. So they get 10% of the profit if they close it over the phone. Obviously I want to incentivize them to try to close it over the phone. So,
right.
I think you need to have lead managers. You need to have the right people, but if they're building good rapport and then they're doing the handoff properly and your acquisitions team's doing, taking the handoff properly, there's not a big disconnect there. And, when I have 4 lead managers, I'm very specific on having, as many as I have, because one of their goals, like we drop on certain days of the week. So say it hits Monday, it's going to taper off by about Wednesday, right? So your call volume. So Wednesday and Thursday, you should be heavy outbound follow-up days. Monday when they have time, Tuesday when they have time, they'll be doing follow-up, but Wednesday, Thursday should be heavy outbound follow-up days. That's kind of how I try to pace my mail that way. And on the days we don't have mail hit, their goal is to do 40 outbound follow-up calls a day. They usually connect with maybe 30% of that. But when you look at our follow-up, days where we're kind of heavy in follow-up, we're 50-50 on appointments, 50-50 on what is fresh and what is follow-up appointments. And like I said, that right there, if people don't take anything away from this conversation, I've just given you the secret to my business. That right there has been a significant reason for our success in 2018 is that follow-up, just the aggression we have behind it.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. Follow up, the money's in the follow up, no matter
Mhm.
what. Doesn't matter
Right.
what business you're in, it's always that case, right? I
Right.
mean, it's
Mhm.
a very small percentage of people on the first call that's you're going to get the deal. But so that's a huge piece of information. Thank you for sharing that. And you said you had four, and you pay them hourly plus
Mhm.
bonus,
Right.
12, $15 an hour, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they started at $12 an hour. They're all higher than that now. I'm not going to give that
Yeah,
all away, but they're all higher. They've been with
right.
me for a while, yeah, and they're doing good. So, I wanted to kind of step back on that. That you mentioned some people think they should have their acquisitions people answer the phone and set the appointment. And maybe there is a better rapport build initially out of the gate, right? But how much money are you losing by not having the follow up systems? And there is no way your acquisitions people are going to be able to answer the phone, build report, go out on appointments, do all their pre-work and everything else, get it in contract, and do all the follow-up that you need to do in your business.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And actually, I ran into that. I had that same problem, and it just turned out to be a problem. So,
Yeah.
we're fixing that. Um, Obviously, you don't believe in the stay small, keep it all perspective on it. I mean, how many? So you have four. I'm just trying to figure out the business. You have four leads managers. You said you had 16 total. So I would say maybe another
Seven,
5 to 8.
seven acquisitions managers, two project managers. I have an office manager, and we just hired an assistant basically for her for the team. So, and then we have technically I count the broker. We have a sister real estate company, and the broker of that I count as part of the flipping team because he runs all of our ARVs. So
Mm-hmm.
our team tags him in Podio. He runs the ARV. The acquisitions team has the ARV in Podio when they go out in the appointment. They don't have to do any of that. So it's like part of my checks and balances system. But yeah,
And so, okay,
so that
and
puts us
and
about 16. Yeah.
and the brokerage, that's part of your company. Did you start a brokerage as well, or team up with one?
In some states, you can set up a corporation and have a managing broker, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what we set up. He manages the operation. He runs all of our ARVs. He's the one generally responsible for listing all of our flips. So yeah, and that's a separate sister company. It's a completely separate company. I forgot to mention I have a dispo guy too. So we do wholesale, and I have a dispo guy as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. What's the percentage? I mean, is that mostly wholesale? Is it a lot of fix and flip? I mean, the California market, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, there's no deals there," and obviously, you're proof that that's a lie.
We're going to cross the 200 deal mark this year. So,
Good for you.
and my goal, my hairy crazy goal for 2019 is 300. We'll see what happens. May make it, may not, but if I can hit 200 again, I'll be happy. So, yeah. So, but we flip and wholesale. We're probably 60, 40, 70, 30 more heavy in the flip side of it. But this year has been a good year for wholesale. We never did it before. We'd be responsible for like 3 wholesales a year. And I took one of my acquisitions guys at the time. I made all the change and put him in the dispo seat. He actually fought me on it, but I just felt in my gut that he was right. Took him till about May to really get his feet under him and accept the position and run with it. But the second he did, it's been game on. And the cool thing is, it's like he only gets paid if we wholesale. So he's constantly taking every single deal that comes into the pipeline, even if it's designated as a flip. And he's like, okay, how much do I have to get on this deal for you to let me wholesale it? And that's been huge, because then he's like, we're getting, if we're projecting 40 on a flip and he gets 40 on the wholesale or 35 on the wholesale, we might just take it and walk away. So,
Right.
so, that's been kind of an interesting thing. We actually had a period of time between July and August where I was saying yes to almost everything because the numbers were so good that we had a lull. We started to run out of potential rehabs, and I got private money people and contractors and everything else. They have to keep busy. So I was like, okay, you got to stop wholesaling. I can rebuild my pipeline. But so it's been interesting. It's been good. It's been fun. It's just been an interesting year to see kind of how it all shakes out.
What do you think's gonna? So I have to ask the question. I mean, what do you think's happening with the market? With what's going on from an interest rate standpoint? We're seeing that go up. I mean, are you seeing low demand? Are you seeing higher demand? What are you seeing?
Right now we're seeing a little bit of, I think, more conservative people in the wholesale area of what we're doing. People are getting a little more conservative there. But as far as the rehabs, we're not really seeing a whole lot of impact. We might stay on the market a week longer I've been through this once. And last time they had to raise interest rates to about 7% to kill the market. I don't see that. I don't see the liar loans. I don't see what I see more than anything is everybody thinks it's going to happen again. And
Right.
that's really, so people will kind of pause, or stall a little bit. And I think that's more the impact than reality or real market shifts. I could be totally wrong. I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel like we're just going to a more normal market than we're going to a fall. And
Yeah.
but the transition from to a more normal market, I think, is everybody's scared that we're going into a fall, and that does impact, I think, things a little bit. But I, like I said, I've been through this once, and I don't see the liar loans. I don't see the crazy stuff. I don't see the ridiculous, a busboy that's making basically minimum wage buying a $500,000 house because he's doing stated income. I don't see that, and I don't feel like the market conditions are the same. I do think that there are going to be changes in the market, but I think they're going to be more regionally specific. That's my opinion. You're going to see impacts in the Bay Area of California, or you might see changes in certain markets in the Midwest, or that kind of thing, more specifically to the market than nationally, like we saw back in 2008.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And I think the fundamentals behind everything aren't like they were in 06, right? Like
Right.
you're saying, the fake loans or whatever, however you called it, right? I mean,
Right.
I don't see that. Let's kind of switch a little bit. What about marketing? So marketing is one of those things that drives every single business. And we're in the business of finding off-market discounted deals, no matter whether you're flipping it, whether you're wholesaling, doesn't matter, right?
Right.
What has been a very profitable marketing channel for you? Is it direct mail, cold calling, and what do you see going into as technology continues to change? Where do you think that's going to go?
Well, I think that direct mail is still a good source of marketing. So basically, I've always shook every bush: networking, PPC, SEO, direct mail, but I never marketed to the level that I marketed this year. When I rebuilt my team, I made a commitment to market at a certain level. Year to date, we sent out, through December, we'll send out basically 1.1 million postcards for the year. So you can tell that I got serious about direct mail for the year. And to be honest with you, I just really focused on direct mail up until probably about the last month or so. And we're starting to do some, reverse voicemails and different things like that. But I wanted to really master one channel, just like I tell anybody who asks me, I want to get into real estate investing, what would you suggest? And I'm like, pick one and just master it and then move on to the next. And
Right.
and I figured out how to enter markets with direct mail. I figured out, basically not all markets are created equal with direct mail. I mean, all that kind of stuff we learned this year is invaluable. How are your trends for response rates? Now I know what months, what weeks are going to be heavy follow-up weeks that we're not going to drop, for next year. And I just watched all that data, and I feel like I still think it's a great source for marketing. That's been something we've been heavy in. We're testing out the reverse voicemails, which is a technology-based thing. We're texting out text messages. My only concern about stuff like that is I feel like as people start to realize that's an avenue, because it's not just going to be real estate investing, it's going to be pretty much other industries as well. I feel like there's going to probably be some legislation that's going to make it more difficult to pull that off. And so I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
That's my thing. And then PPC, we're turning PPC back on. PPC, just even for me at my level, I just feel like it's a really expensive lead source that I don't fully understand. So it is a little intimidating even from my point of view. And you really got to, there's that hockey stick thing, right? You got to spend a certain amount of money for it to even make sense.
Right.
And so, we're going to be turning that back on at the beginning of the year. We're going to be going pretty heavy in it, but it's not something I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket. I think the algorithms change and the competition changes. And, the direct to seller stuff like direct mail, I just think if you do it right and you're paying attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it, I think it's always going to be successful. So.
Yep. No, hey man, I'm on your page as well. Direct mail. That's how I've built my business. It's been great.
Right.
Now, what about, let's switch on to partnerships. Is it just you that runs the company? I mean, it's not Flip Talk. What is what is the company called? I should ask that at the beginning.
Yeah, we operate under strategic REI, but we do obviously do things that are different entities. So, but our main
Right,
entity is
right.
strategic. And Flip Talk is a podcast I have. So that's kind of my personal brand, I guess. And then it is just me. I do have a couple individuals that were with me from the beginning, pretty much, that saw the vision when I had no reason to pull them in, and so they get very well taken care of. But at some point, I'm sure they'll be made partners. I'm a firm believer. I've been in partnerships. You don't know somebody's real character until the money comes in.
Right. And that's the truth.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, somebody gets an ego and I've worked harder than you, or you can't find them because they're at their beach for a week, or, that's where the true character comes out, when the money comes in. It's not when you're all on the battlefield and the bullets are flying and stuff like that. Everybody works hard then. It's when the money comes in that you see somebody's true character. So for those who've helped me build it, I'm going to make sure they're well taken care of. I want to date before I get married, I guess.
Right. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Well, you've done a good job explaining kind of what the business looks like, overviewing what you're hoping to do in 2019. What's 5 years down the road for you? You mentioned about getting into apartment buildings, but what does it look like? What does your vision look like 5 years from now?
That's a fantastic question. I mean, we want to get more into the residual space. So we're doing a lot of that. I really enjoy the podcast. I'm sure you do as well. It's a lot of work, but it definitely gives you an opportunity to meet some really, really cool people. And so for that, it's cool. So I definitely want to do more than that. I got a few projects I'm working on in that arena. And to be honest with you, my 5-year plan, which I'm basically starting to implement the first step of it next year, is to just not be in the flipping business at all. I'm looking for a COO right now. We're going to start working together, hopefully in 2019, so that I can basically pull myself out, just hand them the company and pull myself out completely and move on to other projects.
Well, I mean, that's certainly good. Can you hear me okay? My speakers, my headphones cut out. Can you still hear me all right?
I can still hear you perfectly, yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So, yeah, I mean, that's exciting. I think that the flipping business has its hurdles, right?
Right.
Like there are certain pitfalls and things about it that are really, really hard and really take some stress, put some stress onto you. So I can understand that. Do you think that you'll move into only passive stuff, full-time apartments or other cash flowing assets like that?
No, I mean, I don't see any reason why the flipping business won't stay. I just don't want to personally be involved. Like I'm already pretty much removed. I just need a me, right, to make sure that the little things are handled. Yep. And so once I find that piece of the puzzle, then I will remove myself completely. But there's no reason to shut it down. I mean, I can move on to a dozen other projects as long as I have the right team in place in the flipping operation. It should still be able to continue to do what it does. Yep. And so that's my end goal there. I want to get more into multifamily and commercial projects. I think more because not just the residual part of it. Yes, we all want residual, but I'm kind of bored. I need a new challenge, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, replace myself completely and then move on to the next challenge. The mistake I think some entrepreneurs make is we get shiny object when we move on to the next challenge without replacing ourselves completely, and then everything falls apart. So I got to make sure I add that one component in there that I have somebody running the ship.
Yep, and that's absolutely the case and the truth. I suffered from that earlier this year. You live and you learn, you figure it out, but you can't do that until you have you can't build a house on a foundation that's not there, right? So you have to build the foundation, build it up from there to move on to the next house, right? So,
agreed.
With that being said, are you ready for a lightning round?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. What would you say your hashtag invest this tip is to keep our listeners moving forward? If you could name one.
I absolutely take action and, make sure that you are getting in with the right people, whether it is in some kind of mastermind group or it is just building the community around yourself in your community like RIAs and whatnot. It's important to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who are going the same direction. Mindset is huge. It's an important thing in this business because there's a lot of highs and lows. And, and you need to make sure that you have somebody, by your side pointing at where you need to be when you're in your low.
Yeah, that's huge. Take action, man. I'm all about that. That's the basis of anything, right?
Exactly.
Massive action. You have a favorite book you've ever read that's had a massive impact in your life?
I always throw out How to Win Friends and Influence People, because I was a rough around the edges kid growing up. I had an interesting home life, and I was the kid that always would get in fights. And I had a principal recommend me reading that, and that was the first book I read. That then I went to Think and Grow Rich, and then I went to other books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and so on and so forth. But that book has been integral in, I think, my ability to grow as a business owner as I look back on the lessons from that, and also to, when I was doing acquisitions, building rapport. It's a timeless book. It's dated, but it's timeless, and it's a great book for people.
Absolutely is. Yeah, I actually haven't read that for a couple of years. After I got done reading it originally, I was like, I'm going to read this every year. Well, now it's like 2.5 to 3 years and haven't read it. So appreciate you sharing that. Who's giving you some really good advice? The best advice you've ever been given? Who gave you that? It's a hard question. I know.
It's a hard question because there's so many people that have really impacted my life, in a positive way. My grandmother, and I know you're probably asking for business advice, but this really goes to business, and she just kept me grounded. Her advice was always, basically, God first, family, just stay real, stay grounded. And that's been important. And I lost touch of that. That's the reason why I lost everything. I forgot about that aspect of it. And those words just really ring true. Look, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing's forever. And there are so many changes in this business. And I'm watching people, go out and buy Lamborghinis and do all these crazy trips with the money they're making, assuming it's never going to end. And, if you're just real and true, and you're working hard, and you're managing things properly, you're going to be around for a long time. If you're arrogant, you're pompous, and you think everything you touch turns to gold, it's going to last forever, you're going to fall hard. And so just be real and true.
Be humble, right? Be humble. That's what it's all about. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just guessing, because of how blessed we both are, what's your best way to give back? How do you like to give back?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I do the podcast. I don't sell anything. So that's one way that I give back. We're getting ready to launch. Veterans and children with cancer and illnesses are like the big things on my list for priorities. So I usually do different kind of fundraisers for kids that I'm close to, or that I know people that have cancer. Usually I'll match funds. That's one way I do it. But we're getting ready to launch a podcast. Hopefully I can just kind of throw it out there, called Surviving Me. And the whole premise behind it, I'm co-hosting with a gentleman that's a U.S. Marine. He has a group, in Veteran Suicide Group. And we're going to be interviewing vets that have PTSD and issues that they're either struggling with or have overcome. And we want to share that story. We want people to know that they're not alone. We want people to know that there are answers out there, that there are opportunities to get better, and that there are people who care. And that's going to be a huge passion project for me. And that's one of the ways I want to give back, is I just want to make sure that stories are told. So
that's huge, man. Thank you for doing that. I don't know what the number is. You might know that there's so many veterans that commit suicide every single day that is just mind blowing. Because
the number 22 a day is what's thrown around. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so that's a huge passion project. Thank you for doing that. Right. How can the listeners reach you if they want to learn more about your business or Flip Talk? Obviously, find you on Flip Talk, I'm sure.
Right.
How else can they find you?
Yeah, they can fliptalk.com. They can email me at don@fliptalk.com, and I do respond to emails. I'm on Facebook. My personal page is set to private, but if you friend request me and you send me a little message, how you've heard about me, then I'll generally accept you. And yeah, so I'm open book. I'm willing to answer questions, and as much as I can.
Definitely. Well, thank you much, Don. I really appreciate you being here today, sharing your whole business, what's going on, exciting things for 2019, exciting things in 2018, right?
Absolutely.
We'll definitely talk to you again.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, man. See ya.